you guys remember a few days back, there was a video of Pastor John Anoisike that was going viral. He was they were speaking this strange language. They said it's tongues and so forth. And so it's kind of a very strange whole entire thing that was going on over there. Leon posted something on Facebook in response to what was people sending him the video, and he quoted some verses. And I wanted to talk about something pertaining spiritual gifts. Okay, spiritual gifts. I want to speak about spiritual gifts on this video. It says, people have been sending me this video about a minister who is speaking to a stranger in tongues, to a visitor in strange tongues, to a visitor, and the visitor responding in tongues, and them having a full-blown dialogue, basically, a whole conversation. I am not here to bash or even critique, but all I can say is, what does the word say? Okay? And then he quotes First Corinthians chapter number 14, verse number 2. For he that speaks in tongues does not speak to men, but unto God. It doesn't speak to men, it speaks to God. So this thing of speaking to it's kind of for no one understands him. The verse is dead clear. No one understands him. However, in the spirit he speaks mysteries. So if he speaks in tongues, there's guidelines here. And the verse tells you, it's not a conversation between people. It's not a conversation here. He speaks mysteries. Okay. And then it goes on, and then he says, not some, but no one. The verse literally says, no one. This is what Leon says. Then it says, so I see that as carnal, even bordering on, and let's keep Christ as center. It is going beyond what the scripture says, which questions what it is. Basically, that's what he's saying. There's a line crossed. So what is it? What do we call it now? Because it cannot be biblical. What is it then? This is where I think the idea of service and gifts comes into play. You see, in our gifts, we have a duty to see the purpose of our gifts, whether be in service or in worship unto God. And when one sees themselves in that manner, they start to understand the body of Messiah better. Because we start to understand that there are others who are also in service. So it's not just you alone. So if you have your own interpretation that only fits you, there's a problem. Your interpretation must be able to line up with what others. You see, church is very boring. I'll just tell you straight. Church is very boring. Why? Because we are all doing the same thing. We are supposed to be doing the same thing. By the same thing, it means a person can do something over there that I don't do over here, and I understand it because I see it in the Bible, or I see it lined with the Bible. I must be able to reckon what they do there in the Bible, even though I'm not doing it here, because we are members of the same body. We are members of the same thing. But when the whole church looks at something and say, what is this? Because we can't reckon it according to the scripture, it creates problems. Our gifts have a way of being recognized in the body. That's why when we made there was an episode where we were speaking about these spiritual dance worshippers. There's these churches now that are now blooming, these women churches, that is specific women churches. I'm not talking about churches that are started by women. Okay. There are specific women churches where in their worship they just dance. You remember, we once spoke about one of them. It's in Durban. It's a Durban church. They just dance. That's worship for them. When she's minister, it's dance. She's just dancing. That's it. And I said, there is a lot when it comes to the desires, our desires and our perception of service that can get in the way of equipping the saints. And that's an example of it. They're just dancing. Now, I even saw another one. This one, she's even worse. Maybe we'll make an episode differently. She dances as she does deliverance. As she's doing her thing, she's doing deliverance. She's doing her thing, she's doing deliverance. Very weird, strange thing. But you see, that's it right there. Your service must be, must be able to recognize it in the body. The thing that's boring about church is that we are all doing the same thing. And that boringness, it's exactly what it must be. Don't try to be exciting for us. Excitement brings problems. That's where the "can I prophesy" people came from. They were trying to be exciting. They brought problems. Church is very boring. The mundane, just average, just the least. But in service and in the gifts, others can recognize it. That's why when we're speaking about intercession and prayer and all those things, and the subject matter of the groanings, those guys in Nigeria that will posture a certain way, and then they'll be sweating and all that. We're like, we don't recognize where does this come from, because we are members of the body. We can all see. And is this part of this? Yeah, I might not be doing it, but I'm able to recognize what is done there. Yeah. Because I'm a member of that. Remember, we all call him Father. And if it is Father, even though you are a child of the same Father, I can recognize whether this is a relationship between. Are you sure you're in a relationship with the Father? I can. And so now, even churches that have men-centered, you will notice that the gifts of people are silenced. Completely silenced. It's a one-man show. Becomes a whole thing over there. Because why? Because now there is this restriction. They go through this position of restriction because the perception about service is not really. You don't understand that there is a role that others play in the church. You go to certain churches, it's certain people who stand. Certain people. You will not find anybody who's not related to the pastor, family, and all that. You will not find anybody there. It's the pastor, his children, and his wife. It's practically that. Because they don't understand what service is. Once made an episode on this channel where there was a pastor who was speaking about things, and then he says there is no service outside the fivefold ministry. And we were correcting that whole thing because that's an error. It's a very big error. Very, very big error. It's not a small error it's a very big error. And I hope he didn't teach it after that. We have a duty to recognizing the service of others in the body. We have a duty. Like it's part of your, like Peter assumes he's in the right by isolating the Gentiles when the Jews are around. Paul comes and says, "Oga, doesn't work like that. You are not functioning as one who recognizes the service of those who are Gentiles when they come to faith." He's corrected. Paul can see beyond national pride and steps into what it means to be a representative of the body as a global unit. It's very important we understand this. This is why in the church, in many places, they do not understand apologetics. So apologetics, I'm not talking about exposing. That's something else. Always exposing. Yeah, that's what the world does. The world does that exposure. We don't do exposures here. We do apologetics. Apologetics is a defense of the scripture. It's a defense of the integrity of the scripture and the faith. It's not an attack on the church. It's a part of it. You see Paul doing apologetics in the book of Acts. The life of the disciples is apologetics and polemics. Apologetics and polemics, because they are having to deal with Jews who do not understand what's been done. It's important we have a balance and an understanding pertaining these things, because it comes from understanding others' service in the body. In our discipleship sessions, we mentioned this particular thing. It's one of the last sessions, service. What does service look like? And its reverence towards others in service. Very important. Yeah, tell me your thoughts down in the comment section. It's the Reality Show. See, it's not just what you think about it, but you have to see how others in the body see it. It's very important. You might think you are right, but you have an obligation to go back and check with what is happening in the body with what I am doing. Otherwise, you'll step into isolation and error creeps up very easily. It's Ricky. See you in a later on episode. Other episodes down today, down in the pinned comment.